As I see it, the world and the United States presence and authority or hegemony is changing rapidly under Joe Biden. Peace deals and old alliances that used to depend on United States diplomacy and the US dollar are now being handled by China and Saudi Arabia and others. Where is the United States and the United States dollar heading, in your opinion?
Well, on our April 4th cover of the Trends Journal, it's Death of the Dollar. And then there's a tombstone, and it says, "Rest in peace, in God we don't trust."
It has been proven time and again that sanctions are a boomerang and a double-edged sword to politicize, instrumentalize, and weaponize the global economy, and to willfully impose sanctions by taking advantage of one's dominant status in the international financial and monetary systems, will only end up hurting one's own interests as well as those of others, and inflict suffering on people around the world.
For Vladimir Putin, it was an opportunity to showcase his allies' support. China, India, and South Africa have so far declined to criticize the invasion of Ukraine.
Contacts between Russian business circles and the business community of the Brics countries are being activated. For example, negotiations are underway to open Indian supermarket chains in Russia, to increase the share of Chinese cars, equipment, and machinery in our market. In turn, the Russian presence in the countries of the Five is expanding. The volumes of Russian oil deliveries to China and India are growing noticeably. Cooperation in the field of agriculture is developing dynamically. Russia exports significant volumes of fertilizers to the Brics countries. Russian IT companies are expanding their activities in India and South Africa, and our satellites are already providing TV broadcasts to 40 million people in Brazil.
So what's BRICS? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, an association of the world's 5 major emerging economies. Together, the countries form a powerful economic bloc representing 41% of the world's population. They account for 24% of the global GDP. That's the total value of goods produced and services provided in the world per year, and 16% of the value of global trade.
One eternity later.
The dollar, it's over. The United States became the nation that our founding fathers fought against. We became Great Britain. The sun never sets on the British Empire. We'll kill people all over the world to steal what we want to steal in the name of nobility. We're going to bring freedom and democracy all around the world, America says. So we're going to invade Iraq. You think we invaded Iraq because their major export was broccoli? We're stealing the oil from Syria. We're getting those ISISes as well. We became what they became. And when you see what happened to the UK, the United Kingdom, their pound dissolved after World War I because of all the wars that they fought. And America's done the same exact thing. And the world is tired, outside of Europe, of United States hegemony, be it on the military end or the economic end. How could America say, listen, I want all those commodities based on dollars?
What's the difference between the U.S. debt and the debt that African nations own? Because the U.S. debt doesn't keep the U.S. from being one of the leading powers of the world, but then African nations can't make it because of that debt that is strangling them.
The first question is a very important question. What makes African and third world debt different from the American debt? Number one, America is never going to pay its debts. It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it. The African debt is not in its currency. The African debt is in US dollars. Africa has to earn the US dollars, and the only way it can earn the US dollars is not to be assassinated for growing its own food and becoming independent and doing something that the United States does not like. The principle underlying the foundation of the World Bank, the International Bank for IBRD, research, the World Bank, is that no country should grow its own food. Africa and the third world should only grow export crops.
Yep, here's your problem. Someone set this thing to evil.
Bretton Woods is long over. This is a whole new world. World War II is ancient history for young people. It was what, 77 years ago. You know, you're not the leader of the world anymore. And so they have had it with the dollar. They've had it with America. The Brics are uniting against the United States as well. And here is the story, and it's very simple. It's all about interest rates. The higher interest rates went, the stronger the dollar got. Now remember, the interest rates went up from 0, and they created trillions and trillions and countless trillions of dollars of debt to fight the COVID war. And now what do we have? A $30.7 trillion debt level. When you put the real numbers in, it's about 280 trillion. But we'll stay with the 30.7 trillion. And now you raised interest rates. Now you got to pay more on your debt. So going back to the dollar went up because interest rates went up. When interest rates go up, the dollar's going to go down, and it's going to be the beginning of the end of the dollar.
No, God, please, no, no, no!
Welcome, family, to another edition of Stranger Thinking Media. This is Yeshayahu, and today we're going to ask you the question, are we killing the U.S. dollar on purpose? I mean, is this a planned thing? I mean, I can think of no other excuse for some of the things we're doing. So let's dig into this a little bit. But first, Revelation chapter 14. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations to drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So that brings us to the question. If you look at what we are doing as a nation, I can only think either we're that delusional and arrogant, or this is some really intelligent, high-end plan to do away with the dollar, because that's kind of what's going to happen. I'm not saying the dollar is going to die completely, but what you've done is you've taken Africa, you've disrespected them on every level possible. You've treated them like children, and yet they sit on the richest continent on the planet. Every material you need in your industrial world. I mean, just look at your cell phone and your computer. Half of the materials in those things come from Africa. I don't know if people realize how rich Africa is. Certain people have been plundering Africa for like 500 years plus, and still have barely made a scratch into its mineral wealth. You've had 500 years to rob Africa blind and haven't made a dent in its mineral wealth. And so all you're doing is pushing Africa further from you. And so half the nations in Africa now want to join Brics. And that's what this is all about, you know. So Brics is now pretty much functional. And their goal, I mean, whether they say it or not, their goal is to essentially destroy the Western hegemony over the financial systems of the world. You know, you look at nations like India, 1.4 billion people, something in that neighborhood. They're now the most populous country on earth, and yet they get like no respect in the, you know, as far as, I don't even think they're a member of the G7. So you can see the point here is these BRICS countries, and is essentially the founding BRICS countries. There's only 5 countries, right? But yet they make up 40% of the population of the earth. You see, that's something we're not really understanding. The G7 nations make up like a very small portion of the earth. Now, they're rich economically, you know, but as far as population and people, you add a couple more countries to BRICS, like add Saudi Arabia. You know, Mexico wants to join BRICS. Now, that's the one that's the interesting one, because you and I know that the United States is not going to allow Mexico to join BRICS. If they do, then there must be some other grand plan in place. I don't know what the plan is, but if Mexico could join BRICS, the dollar is done. Now you have a BRICS nation on your border. So I would suspect that the United States, unless there's another plan, I would suspect that the United States wouldn't allow that to happen. I'm shocked that Brazil is in it. It was allowed to be in it. I'm shocked that, you know, Argentina is trying to get in it. You know, but the one that's really going to sting the United States and completely bring to an end the petrodollar is Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia joins BRICS, and it looks like they will, that's the end of the petrodollar. And so I was looking at a program the other day where somebody was saying, the glass is half full, kind of, the optimist guy. And I was thinking, how can he possibly find any optimism in what's happening? I mean, to the U.S. dollar, But like I'm saying, just like the British pound didn't go away completely, it did stop being the world's reserve currency after World War I. And what that did was plunge Britain into a malaise that it took them forever to get out of it. And so that saying, the sun never sets on the British Empire, well, the sun sure as heck sets on it now. So America, I know Americans sit back and they really believe, and part of the problem is the arrogance. That's part of the problem, because when you just think you are that much better than everybody else, you just don't see it coming. You're just like the Germans were having weddings and dancing, having balls and all this. Just as the Russian troops were moving in on Berlin, they just were in denial until the Russian shells started hitting their little ballrooms. That's when they woke up. But it's a little late at that point, don't you think? So I'm sitting here looking at everything's going on, and tell me, I mean, maybe I'm missing something. I don't see any way the dollar survives this. I mean, I see zero way. The only thing I can think is, okay, maybe the great plan is the Great Reset. Maybe this is how they're going to usher in the Great Reset, and everything is going to go to CBDCs. Am I saying that right? Central Bank Digital Currency. Yeah, CBDCs, right? So that's what I'm thinking it is, because it's almost comical. It's almost cartoonish how blundering we are with this whole situation. It's like we're sanctioning nations just to piss them off, knowing full well that at some point they're going to band together and say no more. And that's what's happening now. And yet we keep throwing out the sanction stuff. And it's just causing all these nations, these very populous nations, what you're going to find out is about 2/3 of the earth is not going to be part of the Western, probably more than probably about 75% of the earth is not going to be part of the Western financial system if they keep this up. So the only thing you'd have to rely on at that point is your military power. Well, I got news for you. If 75% of the earth, and that includes Russia and China, who also have nuclear weapons, I mean, that's not a good scenario. You've essentially, it feels like we're kind of like before World War I, what the British did. Germany had surpassed, the German GDP had surpassed the British GDP, essentially. And it was at that moment that a lot of, it's not a coincidence that all of a sudden the Archduke Ferdinand is shot by a Serbian national. Turns out that Serbian national was no ordinary student. He was an operative, a paid operative who assassinated. And that it was understood that if that Serbian were to assassinate, Archduke Ferdinand, then Austria would declare war on Serbia. But then because Germany's allied with Austria and Belgium is allied with Serbia, France is allied with Belgium, this would set something in motion that ended up turning into World War I. You see, what the British did was kick over the chessboard because the Germans were beating them at chess. And so the British kicked over the chessboard. Oops, I guess we can't finish the game. Yeah, that was called World War I, basically. So anyway, I see the same type of formations happening. Everybody is pairing off into little alliances, whatever you want to call it. There's Brics, but then there's this a more strategic union. I think it's called the Singapore operations. I cannot remember, but it's kind of like Brics, only like the Brics of just the mainland, meaning Russia, China, Iran. In other words, excluding the nations where America might have too much influence. And I'll get that for you in the next video. It escapes me the name of that organization. SOC, the Singapore Operations Corporation, or something on that order. But anyway, it's basically Brics type nations, but mainlanded, meaning, yeah, these are the nations the United States definitely doesn't have any influence on, relatively speaking. But anyway, I see this thing going a certain direction, and it doesn't look good, for the home team here. And we got to stop acting so simplistic. Anyway, I'm on my little rant here. I didn't mean for it to turn into this, but it's just so obvious to me how this is going, and it's so sophomoric that I have to think there's a bigger plan in play, whatever it might be. So we're going to go to Revelations 18. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power. And the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Yeah, that's what the United States would become if this economy crashed like it could. Because everybody in this country has guns. This could get ugly. We're turning into Babylon for real. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth were waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Wow. I can't even keep up with all the changes going on in the world. But what I do know is whomever Babylon is, Babylon will have a Humpty Dumpty like finish. But anyway, that's the end of this video, my friends. I'll say farewell and let you know that I love you guys so much. Thank you for continually supporting my content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they'd find it interesting as well. I'm very excited to continue this journey with you. I thank you all for bringing certain stories to my attention and for continually keeping me updated with certain events around the world. I very much appreciate you all, and shout out to the channel members. And may everybody have a beautiful and blessed day who's in the body of Messiah, Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ of Nazareth. And I'll see you all on the next video. Shalom.